Today we're going to go over our perspective vocabulary, and whatever I write on my paper is what I want you to write on your paper. Whenever I use my ruler, I want you to use your ruler. I will try to go slow enough so that you can follow me. And we want to title our paper Linear Perspective. L-I-N-E-A-R-P-E-R-S-P-E-C-T-I-V-E. Notice that it actually has the word line in it. If you remember that, it will help you later. Linear perspective means showing depth, on a flat surface, using a vanishing point and a ruler. Okay, I want you to get your ruler, and we're going to draw a horizontal line about midway across our paper, and you don't have to measure, you can just eyeball it. I want it to go all the way across the paper, and it has to be a ruler line. This line is called a horizon line, H-O-R-I-Z-O-N line. It's also known as your eye level line. If you ever look out at the ocean when you're on vacation and you see where the sky comes down and the water meets the sky, it makes a line. That's your eye level line or your horizon line. A horizon line separates the sky from the land. So everything above this line is in the air, and everything below this line is on the land, or in some cases, water, like the ocean that I just mentioned. Okay, we want to put a point or a dot on the horizon line. Not too big, just about the size of a period you would use for ELA when you're writing a sentence. And it has a name. It's called a vanishing point. To vanish means to disappear. And you'll see why in a few minutes that we call it a vanishing point. Now when you draw using just one vanishing point, there are three types of lines that you can use. The first type is called a vertical line. The second, a horizontal line. And the third type of line is a distance line. So when you're drawing in one-point perspective, your ruler can only go three ways: vertically, horizontally, or to the vanishing point. Now when we look at a picture or a painting or a drawing, vertical lines give us certain information. They tell us how tall things are. So you know vertical lines go north to south or up and down, and they show height. They tell us how tall things are. Horizontal lines go side to side or east to west. And when we look at a picture or a drawing or a painting, they show us how wide things are, and we call that width. Distance lines always go to the vanishing point. And that would be your point on your horizon line. Now, when we draw, we talk about 2 dimensions and 3 dimensions. Or 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional. And lots of times you just say 3D. Like when you go to the movies and you put those glasses on, 3D glasses. 2-dimensional always looks flat. Notice it has vertical lines, which means it shows height. It has horizontal lines, which means it shows width. So if I ask you what the 2 measurable dimensions of a 2-dimensional object are, you would tell me height and width. A 3-dimensional object has a 3rd dimension, which means that you can see more than just one side. It has vertical lines, so I can see height. It has horizontal lines, so I can see width. And it has distance lines, so I can see depth. So if I ask you what the 3 measurable dimensions of a 3-dimensional object are, you would tell me height, width, and depth. And you can tell because you can look at the lines. Vertical lines, you know, show height. Horizontal lines, you know, show width. Distance lines, you know, shows depth. Now, well below your horizon line and over to the right in the corner, I want you to use your ruler and draw a box, a square, or a rectangle. And you don't need to measure, you just need to use your ruler and make straight lines. This is a 2-dimensional object. It has height and it has width. But I want to turn it into a 3-dimensional object using my vanishing point. The way to do that is to use your ruler and line up every corner that you can to the vanishing point, and I'm going to draw a line from the corner to the vanishing point. From the corner to the vanishing point, and you have to use your ruler, you can't freehand this. Corner to the vanishing point. Now I want you to notice I have a corner here that I wouldn't see if this were a solid object. The only way I would see the corner here is if this were made of glass. But I want you to know that there is a corner there. So we're going to connect it by what I call a broken line or a ghost line. So now I can see the top, I can see inside to the bottom, I can see the side, I can see through to the other side, I can see through to the bottom. And now it's a 3-dimensional object. It has depth. Okay? Sometimes it sort of looks like a 4x4 that you get at Home Depot, sort of shooting out toward you. But I don't want it to go on forever. I want it to be a box. So another word comes to mind that you have to know, and you should already know it. Parallel lines. Okay, parallel lines are 2 lines that are the same distance apart that if you stretch them out forever and ever, they would never intersect, they would never meet. And we have to use parallel lines to finish our box. So I'm going to start with one corner at a time, and I'm going to try to go slow because I want you to follow and do what I do. I want you to notice this corner. It's a vertical line, and it's drawn between the middle distance line and the bottom distance line. So right now, I want you to put your ruler on that corner. I want you to move your ruler over to the left, keeping your ruler vertical. It should be as straight as the edge of your paper. And you're going to connect the same two distance lines. You're going to connect the middle solid distance line to the bottom distance line. And now I've created a parallel. Okay, our next corner is the top. It's a horizontal line, and it's drawn between the top distance line and the middle distance line. So I want you to put your ruler on that corner. It should be horizontal, and your ruler should be as straight as the top of your paper is straight. And the point of intersection that we're interested in is the end of the line that we just drew. So I'm going to keep my ruler horizontal, and I'm going to move it up until it intersects with the end of the line that I just drew. And I'm going to connect it with a ruler line, the top distance line to the middle distance line. And here's my box. If you were drawing a solid box, this would be all you would do, because you would see the top, you would see the side, and you would see the end. But I want you to know that the other corners are there, even if you can't see them. So we're going to use our ghost lines and put the other two parallel lines in. I want you to see this corner. It's drawn between the top distance line and the broken distance line. Our point of intersection is right here, the end of the line that we just drew. So right now, I want you to put your ruler on that corner. It's vertical. Your ruler should stay as straight as the edge of your paper, and you're going to scoot it over until it intersects with the end of the line that you just drew. And remember, the corner is between the top distance line and the broken distance line. So I'm going to make a broken line that connects those two distance lines. So now I have a parallel for this corner. I have a parallel for this corner. I have a parallel for this corner. I have one more corner, the bottom. It's a horizontal line. It's drawn between the broken distance line and the bottom distance line. My point of intersection is the end of the line that I just drew. So right now, I want you to get your rulers, put them right on the corner. It should be horizontal, as straight as the edge of your paper. You're going to move it up until it intersects with the end of the line you just drew. And we're going to connect using a broken line, the broken distance line to the bottom distance line. So I actually have a box drawn back here between all the same distance lines that this box is drawn. And do you see why we call it a vanishing point? Objects get smaller as they go toward the point, and if they actually reach the point, they disappear. Now it's really important to keep your ruler straight. Remember the vertical, the horizontal, and the distance lines? Vertical lines always have to be straight up and down. If you turn them, it'll look like your box has been in an earthquake. Horizontal lines should always be as straight as the bottom or top of your paper, and distance lines should always go right to the point. So if your ruler's not straight up and down, or straight across, or going exactly to the vanishing point, then it's probably an incorrect line. Now, another word we want to know, and I think I'm going to put it over here, is the word illusion. Okay, and an illusion is tricking your eye into seeing something that isn't really there. And the reason we want to talk about an illusion, because one of the questions you're going to hear a lot from me over the next 3 years is, why is perspective considered an illusion? Why is drawing in perspective, and we'll say linear perspective, why is drawing in linear perspective considered an illusion? Now, to answer this question, you have to understand what linear perspective is, and you have to understand what an illusion is. Okay? And the answer is, you are tricking your eye into seeing depth on a flat sheet of paper, and that's impossible. This box is on a flat sheet of paper, but when our eyes see it, it looks like it's going back into space. So that is why perspective is considered an illusion. Now, in the 6th grade, we use 1-point perspective, and we draw an interior and an exterior. And if you see the prefix IN, that means it's inside. And the prefix EX means outside, like the exit door takes you outside. Okay? And the interior that we're going to draw in 6th grade is the inside of a room. And the exterior that we're going to draw in 6th grade is we're going to design a city. So if I tell you that you need to draw an interior, that means it's inside. If I tell you to draw an exterior, that means it's something that's outside. Okay? What I want you to do is to practice using your vanishing point and drawing boxes all around. Here, here, here. You might even want to put one that crosses over and see what happens. But this is your vocabulary that you need to know for 1-point perspective, 2-point perspective, and 3-point perspective. Okay, the lines that are out here after we finished our box that we would usually erase because we don't need them anymore are called guidelines, because they guide us to where we need to go. And then when we're finished with our drawing, guidelines are always erased. The lines that stay, that come from the vanishing point, are called distance lines because they show depth. So guidelines are distance lines that are erased when you're finished, and distance lines are distance lines. Okay, 1-point perspective quiz. There are 11 shapes. I'm going to do 3 of them to show you how I want them done, and then you will finish the others on your own. We're going to start with the circle. My vanishing point is right here. I want to turn the circle into a cylinder using one vanishing point. And what I need to do is connect the side of the circle toward the vanishing point. The side of the circle toward the vanishing point. So these are distance lines. Notice I didn't draw them all the way down because I don't want to have to erase them later. Most of my students make the mistake of drawing a straight line right there, but it can't be straight. It needs to be the same as this. So it's going to be more like half of a circle. It's going to be a curved line. Okay, we want a curved line right here. And there's a cylinder floating in the air because it's above the horizon line. Okay, the next one, and when you do these, I want you to think, this is what you need to ask yourself every time. I need to take every corner that I can to the vanishing point. So you need to ask yourself, for every corner you come across, can I take it to the vanishing point? And for this one, there's a lot of corners. I can't take this one because it would draw through the shape, but this one will go, and this one, and this one, and that one, and that one, and that one, and that one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 corners. Now I'll tell you what happens a lot of times is that my students will use the vanishing point for the first 2 or 3 corners, and then they forget about it and they just start drawing lines and they don't use their vanishing point. But you need to use it every time. And then I like to count to make sure I have the right number of lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Remember the parallel lines we talked about in our vocab? Here's a corner. It's vertical. It's drawn between the top distance line and the second distance line. I need a vertical between the top distance line and the second distance line, and I need to make sure that my ruler is as straight as the edge of my paper. Here's my point of intersection. My next corner is horizontal. I'm going to put my ruler on that horizontal corner. I'm going to move it down to the point of intersection and connect the next 2 distance lines. Okay, here's my point of intersection. My next corner is vertical. So I'm going to put my ruler on that corner, keep it vertical, and move it over until it intersects with the last line that I drew. Next corner is horizontal. Point of intersection is right there. So I'm going to keep my ruler horizontal, move it down until it intersects with that corner, and connect the next 2 distance lines. My next corner is vertical. My point of intersection is right here. I need a parallel line, so I'm going to put my ruler on that corner. I'm going to move it out until it intersects with the end of the line that I just drew. And there's my vertical. Now I have one more to do. My point of intersection is here. My corner is horizontal. I'm going to put my ruler on the horizontal corner, move it down to the point of intersection, and connect the next 2 distance lines. Then I want to erase my guidelines that are in the way. Okay? Every line you draw has to be a vertical line or a horizontal line or a distance line. I also want you to notice, do you see how these look like upside down steps? Down, over, down, over, down, over. It's the same thing for your lines, your parallels. Down, over, down, over, down, over. Okay? Now the next one that most people have trouble with is this one. So I know that this corner will go toward the vanishing point. I also know that this one will. This one would draw through the shape, so it's invisible. This one will go, and this one, and this one. This one would draw through the shape. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines that should go to the vanishing point. So I am going to make sure that I line those up exactly to the vanishing point. And I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now this one's a little odd because there's an angle here. It's not a vertical line, it's not a horizontal, and it's not a distance line. So it's like the exception to the rule. I want you to notice between the two distance lines here and between the two distance lines here, I need parallel lines. So I'm going to put my ruler on that corner. I'm going to keep it at that angle and move it over. And I'm going to connect the top two distance lines and the bottom two distance lines at the same time so that they're right across from each other. What I did is I put my ruler on the angle of the lines, realizing that I need parallel lines. Keep my ruler at that angle, move it over. I connected the top two distance lines and the bottom two. Now I'm still not finished yet though. Do you see this line right here? I need a parallel, and here's my point of intersection. So if I put my ruler on that line, I see it's horizontal. And if I move it up until it intersects with my point of intersection and connect the next two distance lines, that gives me a parallel line here. Now I need a parallel line here, and this is my point of intersection. This is vertical. So I'm going to put my ruler on the vertical line, keep it vertical, and move it over until I intersect with the last line that I drew, and I'm going to draw a vertical line straight up. Okay? Now, you are going to finish this paper on your own, and you need to think to yourself to take every corner that you can to the vanishing point. I'm going to be grading to make sure that your vertical lines are straight, your horizontal lines are straight, and your distance lines go exactly to the vanishing point. You either get the entire shape correct or the entire shape is wrong. So make sure that you do your lines correctly. Okay, now we're going to work on our 2-point perspective quiz. I believe there are 10 vertical lines, which means that there are 10 corner lines. I'm going to do 3 of them for you, and then you're going to finish the rest on your own. I'm going to start with this vertical line that's resting right on the horizon line. And if you remember, you're supposed to take the top and bottom to vanishing point A. Well, the top is going toward A, but the bottom is already connected to A by the horizon line. So I'm going to take the top toward B, and if you notice, the bottom is already connected to B by the horizon line. So now all I need are my parallels, and they need to be parallel to the corner so they're vertical. I'm going to draw them until I hit the horizon line, and then I'm going to stop. Now I want to do this one. Lots of my students have trouble with this one. So this is my corner line, and I'm going to take it toward A, and the bottom will go toward A. Now a lot of times this is where my students get mixed up, because this line is really close to that point, but it's still in between the 2 points. So I'm going to take the top toward B, and I'm going to take the bottom toward B. So I have A, and B, and B. Remember, the sides need to be parallel to your corner line, so that means that your ruler has to be straight up and down. And this is where they get mixed up, because this side is so skinny, but it still has to be a vertical line that connects the two. Your ruler should be straight up and down. And notice I should see the bottom because it's above the horizon line. So if this side is B, then this side needs to go to B. And if this side comes from A, then this side needs to go toward A. Okay, we're going to do one more, and then you're going to be on your own. I'm going to do this one. I want you to notice it is outside of, there's vanishing point A, here's vanishing point B, and this is outside of the 2 points. Now if you remember, I taught you when it's outside of the 2 points, you have to turn it into a flat shape and take it to the closest vanishing point in 1 point perspective. So every corner that can will go toward point A. Okay, so we have the box resting on the horizon line. There's a box above the horizon line, and you can see the bottom. And there's a box outside of the 2 points. It's below the horizon line, so we can see the top, but we needed to turn it into a flat shape and take it to 1 point. So you need to finish the other 7. The shape is either correct or incorrect, so you need to get every line done correctly using your vanishing points. Okay, today we're going to build a 1 point perspective city. So I want you to title your paper. We're going to title it Linear Perspective. And then a 1 point city. Okay. Now I want you to do what I do in about the same place on the paper, about the same size. I want you to make your horizon line with your ruler in the middle of your paper. And I want you to put your vanishing point in the middle on the line. But before we go on, I also want you to realize that your horizon line can really be anywhere on the paper as long as it's a horizontal line that goes across. And your vanishing point really can be anywhere on the horizon line. But for my intents and purposes for you, it's easier to teach you with the vanishing point in the middle. Okay, we're going to start with 3 boxes. I want you to put a box that rests right on the horizon line. And then I want a box on the other side, on the right side, that actually crosses over the horizon line. And then one more box. I don't want it under the vanishing point. I would like it over to the side, well under the horizon line. Okay? And while you're doing these, I want to remind you that we don't have a box up above the horizon line, because above the horizon line is sky, and buildings don't float. So they either have to touch the horizon line, come across the horizon line, or come below the horizon line. And since we're going to make this a building, and we really can't see through buildings, I'm going to erase the horizon line that's inside that box. So by now you should have your 3 boxes done, and we want to take every corner that we can toward the vanishing point. I want you to notice the bottom 2 corners of this particular box are already connected. If I try to connect this corner, it draws through the shape, which means it's an invisible corner. So there's really only one corner that will go. And I'm only going to go about halfway and stop, so that I don't have to erase guidelines. Okay, I have a vertical corner, so I'm going to put my ruler on that corner, keep it straight up and down. Move it over and draw a vertical line down until I hit the horizon line, and then I'm going to stop. For this box, this corner would draw through the shape, and this corner would draw through the shape, which means they're invisible corners. But this corner and this corner will go toward the vanishing point. And I'm only going to go about halfway, so I don't have to erase my guidelines. I need a vertical parallel to this corner, so I'm going to put my ruler on that corner, keep it vertical, move it over, and connect my distance lines. Now I can't see the horizon line here, so I'm going to need to erase it. And now I have 2 boxes that are 3-dimensional. I have one more to go. The box here underneath the horizon line, this corner will go to the vanishing point, this one, and this one. This one would draw through the shape, so this is an invisible corner right here. So I'm going to take 3 corners toward the vanishing point. Okay? Now, here's where a lot of my 6th grade students mess up. It's finishing this box. I need a parallel line. See this corner? It's drawn between the top 2 distance lines. It's horizontal, and I need a parallel horizontal line between the same distance lines. So I'm going to put it on the corner and move it up. I'm going to make sure my ruler is straight across, and I'm going to connect the top 2 distance lines. So now these 2 are parallel to each other. This corner is drawn between the middle distance line and the bottom distance line, and my point of intersection is right here. So if I put my ruler on this corner and I move it over to my point of intersection, I'm going to connect the middle distance line to the bottom distance line. Now I don't know if you can see it yet, but my 3 boxes, I'm going to start calling them buildings from now on. So instead of boxes, we're going to call them buildings. Now, buildings usually have doors and windows, so I want to teach you how to put them on correctly. The flat 2-dimensional shape that we started with on each box, I can draw windows and doors on there without using my vanishing point. And you can just watch for a minute and see what I mean, and then you can add windows and doors to yours. I do want you to use your ruler. A lot of my students start freehanding the doors and windows, and I would prefer that you use your ruler to do this. Okay? So on the 2-dimensional ends that we started with, I can put doors and windows just like I always have. I don't have to use the vanishing point. And so now you can add doors and windows, but only to that first square or rectangle that you drew for each box. Okay, I made this one like a garage door because I want to show you something cool later on. Now remember, use a ruler and draw them straight on, just like you always have, but only on the first box that you drew. Now, if you haven't finished yet, it's okay. I just need to know that you know how to do it, and then I'll give you time to go back and finish them later. I would like to teach you now how to put windows on the sides of your buildings. So, we start with a vertical line as tall as we want our window to be. And then we take the top and bottom of that line toward the vanishing point. And you have to use the vanishing point. The end of the windows are finished with a vertical line. So any window or door on the side of the building has to go, the top and bottom has to be by the vanishing point, and the sides are vertical lines. So top and bottom go toward the vanishing point, and the sides are vertical. So I want you to try to put some doors and windows on the sides of your building using your vanishing point correctly, please. I'll be around to make sure that you're doing it right, so if you need help. Now another cool thing you can do, you can put ledges on the tops of the buildings that you can see the top of. I can't see the top one of this because it's on the horizon line, It's at eye level, and I can't see the top on this one because it's at eye level. But this one, it's the little ledge that keeps you from walking off the top of the building when you're on the very top. And the way to do that is to find this back corner, and I'm going to make a tiny vertical line. It's the back corner, and I'm going to make a vertical line. And then I'm going to line my ruler up with the bottom of that tiny little vertical line, and I'm going to start at the line and go toward the right until I hit the building, and then I'm going to stop. I lined my ruler up with the bottom of the line and stopped when I hit the side of the building. And now I'm going to line the same end with the vanishing point, and I'm going to draw down until I hit the building. See, isn't that cool? Okay, so you know how to do your buildings, and you know how to put windows and doors on, and now you know how to put ledges on. The next thing I want to show you is how to put a sidewalk around your building. This gets a little more complicated. It's not hard, you just have to pay attention. Okay, we're going to put a sidewalk around this building down here first. And I'm going to lay my ruler horizontally in front of this building until I decide how wide I want my sidewalk to be. And then once I've decided that, I'm going to draw a horizontal line that's longer than the two corners of the building. See how it goes past the corners? So go ahead and put your horizontal line on there, and make sure that it's long enough that it goes past the corners of the building. Now, the ends of these lines actually go toward the vanishing point. So if I line up the end, I'm going to go until I hit the building and stop. And on this side, I'm going to draw a line that goes past the back corner of the building just a little bit. Now sometimes my students make this line too short and it looks like it's going to hit the front. If that happens, just extend your horizontal line a little longer so that when you connect it to your vanishing point, it looks like it goes behind the building. So I have a distance line, a horizontal, a distance, and then in the back we need another horizontal so that it looks like it wraps around the building. Isn't that cool? Now, the sidewalk on this building's easier. As the bottom of the buildings get closer to the horizon line, it gets a little more distorted. Because this building, you wouldn't be able to see the sidewalk because it's on the horizon line. So the sidewalk would actually be at your eye level and it wouldn't show. But on this building, we'll do the same thing over here. I'm going to put my ruler horizontally till I decide how wide I want my sidewalk to be. And then I am going to draw a line that's longer than the corners. And I'm going to tell you that this corner has to be a lot longer than what you think because it's getting closer to the horizon line. So when you draw this line, it should go way out past the corner. Okay, go ahead and do that, please. The ends of the line, and let me see if this is even long enough. The end needs to go to the vanishing point so that it looks like it goes behind the building. And if I connect it to the vanishing point right now, it's only going to hit the front. So I'm actually going to need to make it even longer. I'm going to try it way out here and see if that works. There. Do you see what I mean? I had to go out far enough so that when I went back toward the vanishing point, it would go behind the building. And now I'm going to do the front of the building. I'm going to go by the vanishing point and make it a little longer past the corner of the building. So I have distance line, horizontal, distance line, and then I need to finish it with a horizontal that goes behind the building. Okay? Now, you know the cracks in the sidewalk that show where the builders have poured it, and they pour it in squares. I want to show you how to do those, and you're going to need to listen and pay attention so that you don't get confused. The first thing I need you to realize is that as things go back toward the vanishing point, they get smaller and they also get closer together. So, the cracks on the sidewalk on this side are going to be horizontal lines. And don't do anything yet, just watch, because I want to show you. I am going to make the first square sort of big. And I'm going to make sure that my ruler is horizontal. And I'm going to draw a sidewalk line right there. And then I'm going to keep it horizontal, and I'm going to move it up. And I'm going to make another horizontal line. So there's another crack in the sidewalk. Now if your ruler starts to turn when you make your lines, it's going to look like your sidewalk was in an earthquake. So if you want it to look like a nice sidewalk, you need to keep your ruler horizontal. Now as I go back, I'm going to make these lines closer together so that they look like they're getting smaller. So I'm going to put my ruler here, and I'm going to move it back. I'm going to look at it and straighten it up. And then I'm going to put another crack in the sidewalk. I'm going to do the same thing, but each time there's going to be less space in between the cracks. And you really need to make sure your ruler's straight, because it's really easy to let it not be straight. And you'll know if your sidewalk looks like it's leaning, then you know that your lines aren't straight. Now see how wide it is here? It's not as wide there. The cracks in the front come from the vanishing point. And they're about the same distance apart because they're not going back into space like these are. And each one has to go. Most of my students miss this part. When they draw the city on their own without my help, they put straight lines up and down instead of using the vanishing point. I don't know why, but almost all of my students do that, even though these lines come from the vanishing point. Okay? Now, these cracks in the sidewalk are going to look a little different because the building's closer to the horizon line. You still need to keep your ruler straight, and you need to make horizontal lines. And they need to get smaller and closer together as they go back. But the sidewalk is more stretched out because it's closer to the horizon line. Do you see what I mean? The lines in the front still go by the vanishing point, about the same distance apart. And there's your sidewalks. Remember, any building that rests right on the horizon line, you won't see a sidewalk. Okay, now we're going to do roads. And roads are sort of like sidewalks, only they're wider. I'm going to line up against the edge of my sidewalk, and I'm going to make a distance line that goes all the way down. And I'm going to make another distance line and there's a road. If you want painted lines in your road, you can't just make a single line. If you've ever walked along the road, those painted lines are probably 2 or 3 inches wide. So what I like to do is I like to look at the width of my road, and I put 2 little dots where I think the middle of the road might be. And then I line those dots up with my vanishing point, and that way my painted line gets smaller as it goes back toward the point and wider as it comes toward me. If you wanted a broken line, it's a lot like the sidewalk lines. Your ruler has to be horizontal. And what you do is you make your horizontal lines so that you can do an eraser and come in and erase that part. I'll show you one more time before we go on. And then you erase the middle part. Okay, and that's if you want broken lines so that you can pass people on the road. Now, when you make roads, they have to come from the vanishing point, or they can be horizontal. So if I want to turn, I can make horizontal lines that go this way, and it helps if you erase this line. It helps with the visual image that your eye is receiving. You can drive down the road and turn. Okay? You can also go straight across and make an intersection up here. Now remember, the roads are going to be really small once they get back this far. And then you would erase. So it looks like an intersection. Now there's something that you need to realize, and a lot of my students try to make roads by making vertical lines. And if you remember, vertical lines show height, and roads are flat. So you can't use a vertical line to turn the corner. What you need to do is, if you're way back here and you want to turn the corner, the top line has to be longer and the bottom line has to be shorter. Do you see what I mean? Longer, shorter. And then, as crazy as it sounds, you're going to line up the end of the long line with your vanishing point and go out. And then you're going to line up the end of your short line and go out. And that means that you can drive down the road and then turn. Now I want to show you one more cool thing. Well, actually I have more to show you. But do you see this garage door? If you wanted to make it like a drive-through, like a car wash, I'm going to show you how to do that with your road. You need to know the points of intersection right here and right here. So look at those and find them. I am going to line my vanishing point up with this one, and I'm going to draw from my road and stop at the building. I'm going to pick up inside the door and come all the way down. So I've lined it up to the vanishing point. I've started right here. I stopped at the building, picked it up inside the door, and came out. With this one, I'm going to line up to the vanishing point. And then I'm going to erase the part of the sidewalk that's in the way. And now I have a road going through my car wash. and it connects to the road down here. So you can drive down the road and turn and go through the car wash. Okay? Now, 3 buildings in a city is not enough. And I wanted to show you how to draw a building behind a building. Do you remember how we started with a flat shape? Well, I'm going to make a flat shape, but I'm going to make it look like it drops down behind a building. So here's my flat shape. I think I might make a tall one over here. Like a taller, skinny one. And see how they look like they just drop down behind? But we know that if we could see through it, they would be resting on the horizon line. And then I can't take this corner because it draws through the shape, but I can take this one. And I am going to draw a vertical line either until I hit the building and stop or until I hit the horizon line and stop. Actually, I'm going to make this one a little longer. Okay, so I have buildings behind buildings. The windows and doors are the same as what I taught you before. Now, you can add parking lot lines. Parking lot lines are the same as sidewalk cracks, only longer. You can add street lights. You can add a swimming pool, a car. You could add a background. There's all kinds of things you can add. But what you must know is how to make buildings, how to put windows and doors on them, how to make sidewalks, and how to make roads that intersect and connect.